Hello and welcome to the 2021 Lighting the Way Autism in Our Communities Conference. This is a virtual conference this year, and we are very excited to have two exceptional keynote speakers with us. The one that you'll be listening to today is Dr. Kerry Magro, and Dr. Magro is a young man with autism spectrum disorders, and he was diagnosed at a very young age. And he is here to share his experiences as it applies to bullying and overcoming many obstacles throughout his life and making decisions that shaped him into the successful speaker and author that he is today. Maybe I can do this in a second. There we go. All right, there he is. Look at that little cutie. And the man too, he's a handsome man. Look at that cute little boy though. So Dr. Kerry Magro is an award-winning professional speaker. He's a best-selling author and an autism consultant to not only the HBO series Mrs. Fletcher, as well as other films that feature individuals with autism. He started professional speaking over 9 years ago via the National Speakers Association, and he's spoken at over 900 events during that time. In May of 2019, he received his doctorate in educational technology leadership from New Jersey City University. He's originally and is living in Hoboken, New Jersey. And if you'd like more information about Dr. Magro, you can receive that or get that at kerrymagro.com. In Dr. Magro's free time, he raises scholarship money for students with autism to attend college. He hosts a special online community, which features videos of persons with disabilities breaking down the barriers for themselves and in their communities. He is the CEO and founder of KFM, Making a Difference. He has written 3 best-selling books, and he is featured in major events and TV shows to talk about the importance of autism and disability advocacy and awareness for communities and various activities. So please help me in recognizing and welcoming Dr. Kerry Magro.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me here today. I am so excited to be here with this community. We've been actually, ironically enough, in contact with the university since, it's been quite a while. But I'm really excited to be here with all of you today to talk to you about a really important topic that's impacting our community today in autism spectrum disorders. Now, I was diagnosed with autism when I was 4 years old, and throughout my life have gone through rigorous challenges. Many people expected that my life would look very, very challenging. I was told by experts that I would be lucky to graduate from high school, let alone speak in front of you today as somebody who has received his doctorate in education from New Jersey City University and now has a full-time job as one of the only openly autistic professionally certified speakers within the country. So to start off today's presentation, I just wanted to share with everyone right away that I am a big note taker. So I have something I would like for all of you to do. If you can take your phone out and then to go to your camera app and take a photo of this screen, specifically the QR code you see at the bottom. Now, I love to give my PowerPoint slide notes. I'm going to be sharing a lot of resources with you during today's presentation. So take a second, scan that QR code, and if for a reason you don't have a smartphone, just grab that link right there, bit.ly/Kerry slide notes. Just leave your name and email, and I'll be more than happy to send you all the PowerPoint slide notes from today's presentation. In addition to that, I would also like to share that in the comment section, if you would just like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you interested into this topic as well. Just for a quick second, in addition to that, while you are doing that, I apologize, I have multiple PowerPoint presentations open today. We are on the correct one currently. Yes. Okay, perfect. But yeah, so that is the link that you could grab, and that's also the QR code that you can grab as well, so you can get the PowerPoint slide notes from today's presentation. But while you're doing that, to start off today's presentation, I just want to share a quick video with you so you can get a little bit of an understanding of my journey from nonverbal autism to today being a professional speaker. I hope you enjoy.
Our next guest is an accomplished public speaker and activist who has devoted his life to helping others. Not bad for a guy who was completely nonverbal for the first few years of his life. But once Kerry Magro found his voice, he had a lot to say.
My parents have always told me I'm special, so why am I special? And then later on, I realized that I'm even more special because I have autism.
Kerry Magro's childhood was marked with rough patches. He was completely nonverbal at age 2 and diagnosed with autism at age 4.
I just remember having difficulties trying to explain myself to the world around me.
When Kerry did speak, he struggled to express himself.
Most of my memories were simply just about that kid who wanted to communicate with the world around him, but didn't have the verbal means of actually doing that.
His mother, Suzanne, remembers watching her son have a hard time adjusting to the outside world.
He turned 2 and he was scared of everything. He was scared of the water, he was scared of the rain.
But as the years went on, Kerry slowly began to find his words.
When you can't communicate with the people you love the most in this world about even some of your basic needs, it gets really, really tough. So, but luckily, once I started talking, I never stopped talking.
Kerry went on to graduate high school, attend Seton Hall University, and then independent living. Today, Kerry is a professional speaker, activist, and mentor dedicated to educating people about autism. Wow, this is a tough one today. Kerry is currently finishing up his doctorate in education while also writing a children's book about autism acceptance in addition to his public speaking. Good for him.
So that's just a little bit into my journey. And I was diagnosed with autism at a time in 1992 when the numbers of autism were 1 in every 1,000 being diagnosed. And today, autism is the fastest growing developmental disability. For people who are new to the autism community, autism is a social and communication disorder that affects a wide range of people within our community. And I actually took my extreme laser focused key interest of wanting to become the next Larry Bird and the 6th member of the Backstreet Boys to find a passion in sports, where I got my business degree in sport management for my undergraduate at Seton Hall University before I decided to change career paths, because I realized that our disability community were being underserved. So I changed career paths to become one of the first openly autistic professionally certified speakers, working with a speaker bureau called the National Speakers Association, who do professional certifications in public speaking. It's given me the wonderful opportunity to travel the globe and to speak to a wide range of groups over the past 10 years, speaking over 1,000 events. During my journey, I took my second love of being that 6th member of the Backstreet Boys to fall in love with theater, performing over 20 plays in my life, leading to what I think today was the biggest reason why I got into a career, being in public speaking, being comfortable being in front of an audience, but also growing up with autism, having challenges with social interaction, being in front of so many people and being able to engage in scripts helped me tremendously during my journey. Today, I get the opportunity to serve as an autism entertainment consultant on a wide range of films to make sure we're bringing a realistic portrayal of autism to our entertainment industry. Getting to work with Warner Brothers on Joyful Noise, starring Queen Latifah and Dolly Parton, Jane Wants a Boyfriend, which focuses on a 25-year-old girl with autism trying to find love in New York City. And then also in 2019, HBO's Mrs. Fletcher, which focuses one of the characters on having nonverbal autism. During my journey, I've also written several books to share a little bit more about self-advocacy for those with autism, such as Defining Autism from the Heart, Autism and Falling in Love. And then just 2 years ago, my first children's book that focuses on a child who is nonverbal, who's on the autism spectrum, and then another who has sensory challenges. In my spare time, like the intro mentioned, I have a 501c3 nonprofit organization where I provide scholarships for autistic students to go to college, while also reducing biases around the disability community today. If I can leave you with anything today, it's that by listening to my story today, that you understand that there really is no look to autism. Now, the two most common things I hear about when I tell people I'm on the spectrum for the first time is, Kerry, you have autism, but you don't look like you have autism. And then the second one is, Kerry, you have autism, but you look so normal. We need to normalize as a society that autism has no look. And some individuals with autism are going to have an invisible disability, such as myself. But just because they have an invisible disability does not mean that they don't need support. That's the other reason why I mentioned things such as functioning labels. I wish we would get away from saying things such as high functioning autism and low functioning autism, because even though in my speech would be considered high functioning, my sensory challenges would be considered low functioning. That is why, in addition to that, when I speak in K through 12 schools, I just tell people, be kind to everyone, because you might not know the internal struggles that people are going through. You oftentimes will only see what's on the surface. So my diagnosis, I was diagnosed at a time when there's a specific diagnosis for autism called pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. And even though I started saying my first word when I was about 2.5 and started speaking complete sentences when I was about 7, most of my challenges were sensory related. These included things such as being deathly afraid of bells, sirens, or any hypersensitivity to. So for most of my life, my sensory challenges were hypersensitive. Now, most people that you meet who have autism are either going to have low sensory stimuli or high sensory stimuli. And I was always on the high end of that spectrum. And growing up in a big city, I'm based in New Jersey. I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, before moving to Hoboken, New Jersey, 2 big cities. I always had a lot of hypersensitivity when it came to loud noises, where my parents would carry around headphones every single place we would go. In addition to, I would wear sunglasses, even indoors in school, because of the challenges of fluorescent lights on my eyes. In addition to that, I couldn't be bathed until I was about 18 months old due to the textural feel of water on my skin. I didn't want to be touched or hugged. One of the biggest misconceptions we have in the autism community is that those with autism lack empathy, when I think some of the people I know who have autism are some of the most empathetic people I've ever met in my entire life. I had picky eating challenges, which I talk a lot about in some of the workshops that are available on my website. And in addition to that, these were some of the other challenges. I will say having an occupational therapist who really worked with sensory related products was tremendous towards my adolescence, especially a sensory brush, which I would use on my skin for about 5 minutes a day to self-regulate for myself. And you can find these sensory brushes, which are basically just the size of the palm of my hand, on websites such as funandfunction.com, have a wide range of different brushes that you could try, especially if your child has sensory related challenges. In addition if anyone would like my PowerPoint slide notes after today's presentation, definitely go to that link that I mentioned in the beginning or scan the QR code. In addition, feel free to take photos throughout today's presentation. And if you would be willing, give us a little bit of feedback. Tag us on our social media channels from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at Kerry Magro. So one of my greatest pleasures I get to do is, even though I love speaking to big businesses about the ROI benefits of hiring autistic people in the workplace, some of the most thrilling presentations I get the opportunity to do are to speak in K through 12. I have fond memories of self-advocates coming out about having autism for the first time after hearing my presentations. For example, on the left here, a boy with autism came up to me after one of my talks and said, "Thank you for speaking at my school today. I feel like people don't understand autism enough, and I feel empowered to self-advocate for myself after hearing you speak today." Now, growing up with autism, I knew no one who had autism, and that felt very isolating. I learned about my autism diagnosis when I was 11 and a half. We were playing Disability Celebrity Bingo in a social skills class where we were learning that Michael Jordan has ADD, Magic Johnson has ADHD, Leonardo DiCaprio has dyslexia. And at the end of the class, the teacher says to all of us, all these individuals, some of the most successful people in the world, are special, just like you. So I raised my hand that day and I asked my teacher, "So why am I special?" And she said I needed to talk to my parents about that. And the story goes, and I talked to my parents after school that day, and that was the first time that they ever explained to me that I had autism, and it was life-changing. But growing up in K through 12, being that only autistic child in many of my classes, it was a real struggle to really find people I had similar connections with, especially in terms of my challenges. Now, I found a lot of people who had common interests to me in things such as sports and theater, but it was really, really hard to find somebody to connect with who had similar challenges. And that's why I encourage more peer mentoring in our schools, along with student assemblies comprised of public speakers who have a wide range of disabilities to help these kids feel like they're a little less isolated within this world. So talks I give, in addition to that, I often work on retainer in a technical advisor role for school districts to assist students with special needs, their families, and schools through events in district, schools, online, and social media presence as well. I have the wonderful opportunity to serve in digital marketing for 4 years as a consultant, and have worked with many different school districts to make sure that they are focused on diversity and inclusion within their school districts. In addition to that, again, giving the student assemblies, also talking to as part of professional development, because one of the biggest things I continue to stress is that there have been studies that indicated that only 1 out of every 3 teachers in the United States receive any form of professional development focused on special education. And that blows my mind. Considering today, statistics indicate that 1 in 6 children in the school systems have a developmental disability, we need to be doing more to make sure that we are teaching the way that our students learn. In addition to that, giving CPAC and PTA presentations for parents in the community. But another big area is talking about the fact that children with autism are growing up to be adults with autism, and we need to be ready for them. And in employment, especially talking about talented individuals and the ROI benefits that they can bring to businesses. In addition to that, as part of our Autism Entertainment Consulting, we've worked on the social media campaign for the first seasons of The Good Doctor on ABC, which focuses on Dr. Sean Murphy, a surgeon who's on the autism spectrum, along with Netflix's Atypical, which has its final season coming out this summer, which focuses on Sam Garner, an 18-year-old with autism trying to find love and also succeed in college. We just came out with an ebook recently called Autism on Netflix, Disney Plus, and more. There have actually been a wide range of projects that have been coming out in the past few years, including Disney Plus just came out with Loop, which is a Pixar short that focuses on a nonverbal girl with autism. It's a great great perspective, especially because it focuses on a girl, because girls are often underrepresented within our autism community. In addition to my roles as one of the only professionally certified speakers on the spectrum in the country, I also serve on many different boards and advisory groups within the autism and disability community, including IBCCES, who for some of you might actually have this accreditation, the Certified Autism Specialist accreditation. One of the big things that I love that they do is they do Certified Autism Center accreditations across the country now. One of their biggest ones was Sesame Place in Pennsylvania. Ironically enough, one of their Muppets, Julia, became one of the first Muppets with autism to ever land on Sesame Street. So that's pretty cool. In addition to that, serving on the board of directors from the National Autism Association, the panel of advisors for the Autism Society of America, a board member of Autism on the Seas. And I love sharing this quote in many of my presentations because I think it really embraces the disability movement we currently have, where we talk about nothing about us without us. I encourage people, I was speaking in Houston, and I had the opportunity to have my PowerPoint on an IMAX screen for the first time, which was really amazing. And I wanted to share with the community. It was an inclusion presentation. And I wanted to share this quote that I came up with that just says, don't just read a book to learn about autism, learn by getting to know people who have autism, have those first person perspectives. So I wanted to share a poem with all of you that I wrote in my first book I ever came out with called Defining Autism from the Heart, because it's something that I think our students could benefit from. And what I mean by that is being able to come up with creatively with different poems and different self-reflection exercises to show where they've come from to where they are today. So this poem that I'm going to share with all of you now is called Only If You Knew Me. If you knew me, you would know I was nonverbal till I was 2.5. You would know I was diagnosed with autism when I was 4. You would know I got kicked out of 2 therapeutic preschools because they said they didn't know how to control my quote unquote autistic behaviors. You would know I would lash out to get attention when I couldn't communicate on my own. You would know I twirled my hair. And because of the sensory challenges growing up, I had Steven Tyler rockstar hair for most of my adolescence. You would know I spent hundreds of hours a year in occupational, physical, speech, music, and theater therapy to get me to where I am today, speaking in front of all of you. You would also know, unfortunately, I spent hundreds of hours a year being bullied because of my autism diagnosis. And for a short time, you would know that experts would say that I would be lucky to graduate from high school due to the severity of my challenges on the autism spectrum. But if you also knew me, you would know I graduated from college. You would know I received a master's degree in strategic communications with a scholarship from the National Speakers Association to pursue a career in public speaking. You would now know, as of 2 years ago, I received my doctorate in education. So hopefully one day I could become an adjunct professor while I continue to travel the globe so I could teach students about our very special community. You would now know I have a full-time job as a professional speaker, best-selling author, and life coach. My mom gets a kick out of this, so I had to keep it in the poem. You would know I've had a girlfriend. You would know I love my friends, my family, and specifically the autism community we have out there. But most importantly, you would know that I'm just Kerry. And no matter what autism means or doesn't mean, I'm just trying to be the best me I can be. Only if you know me. If you're listening to this poem today, please know that there's no one thing in our loved ones' lives that can define who they are. We as a community have so many unique and beautiful stories. So let's please make sure that they are heard every single day. So this is a poem I shared in one of my first books I ever came out with called Defining Autism from the Heart. And I assumed that this book maybe might sell 50, 100 copies, might be a nice Christmas gift for my parents. But within 3 days, it became an Amazon bestseller for special need parenting. And it continued to give us a platform to continue writing books based on the journey I had on the autism spectrum, writing about a book a year later about relationships for those with disabilities, and then also contributing with two of my friends and former colleagues who also are autistic, Dr. Temple Grandin and Dr. Stephen Shore, a book called College for Students with Disabilities We Do Belong, that focuses on 17 individuals with disabilities who have successfully navigated a post-secondary education and graduated. So I like to share during my presentations, because I know that there are probably a few parents on the line, some things that helped me out that my parents did when I was growing up on the spectrum. The first thing that they really want to do is really trying to rule out as many associated medical and mental health conditions as humanly possible. So a dual diagnosis can be very common for those on the autism spectrum. I have a dual diagnosis of dysgraphia, which was due to my fine motor challenges. Simply put, it's a handwriting disorder where I was having trouble growing up being able to write down on paper. Many individuals in our community often have a dual diagnosis of ADHD, but these are some of the other ones that I have seen during my travels, from things such as ADD, apraxia also being pretty prevalent, epilepsy, depression, anxiety, ecophilia, and the list goes on and on. What my parents also did early on was they realized the importance of hiring an advocate to help them through the process of the Individualist Disability Education Act, in addition to the Individualized Education Plan. Once I was starting school, because I was diagnosed at 4 and then I was just starting school a little bit later on, and you could actually receive IEP services as early as 3 years old. So my parents knew right away that they wanted to really take the bull by the horns, if you will. And they started reaching out to groups, researching rights law, to learn more about how they could hire an advocate. And they would also look at websites and resources. Some websites I would recommend for families to check out today include the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association, have a list of state insurance mandates for autism spectrum disorders for all 50 states. Definitely learn about your rights, learn about your insurers, see if you are doing private insurance, what they cover, if they cover different therapies, if they cover ABA therapy, if that's something your child has received in the past. Definitely do your utmost in those areas. Also, you can't do this alone. As I mentioned in my story that I shared this morning about children needing mentors and people to look up to, that's important for parents as well. You can't do this alone. And there have been studies that have indicated that isolation, depression, and anxiety are more prevalent in those who don't have a strong mentor in their lives. So look at websites such as the National Mentoring Resource Center if you're looking to establish not only finding a mentor for yourself to walk you through the process, especially if your child was just recently diagnosed, but also for your child as they're going into school for the first time. You could also look into Facebook groups. Take it with a grain of salt, though, because some are toxic in nature and can be toxic in nature and share false information. But I have two groups. I have a public group called Autism Support Group, which I host, and in addition to that, a private supporter group who support my nonprofit called the Kerry's Autism Village, where I provide webinars and resources based on my journey for those people who subscribe to Kerry's Autism Village. In addition to that, I would definitely recommend, if you're looking for a teacher perspective, following the Facebook group Special Education Teachers. They do a fine job. And then also Asperger's Syndrome Awareness, if you're trying to get first-person perspective from those with autism as well. Also, in addition to that, social skills are often overlooked in K through 12. And for many of our loved ones, they have to be stressed quite often. Simply put, I didn't have social skills classes until I went to a private school for those with learning disabilities. Really never received it in the public school setting. So I definitely recommend to advocate for more electives towards social skills. And when you're looking at social skills, something I want to remind families is to try to make goals observable or measurable. This will help dictate how we can go about having children reaching more developmental milestones when it comes to social skills. So, for example, an observable goal might look at something such as, I will greet my peers at least twice a week during group activities. And the measurable goal could be something on the lines of, instead of writing notes, I will ask my teacher for help when I don't understand a situation at least once a week. Now, these are things that you could help establish in your child's IEP. You could talk to your child's study team about that as well. So during my journey, getting the opportunity to have that first person perspective, to be able to speak to so many groups, one of the things I realized right away, though, was that I was one of the only individuals with a disability speaking at many of the places that I was going to speak at. And I found that so unfortunate, because I think some of the greatest experts in the community are those who can share those first person perspectives. So because of that, and to give more of a platform to our self-advocate community, I decided to start a Facebook page called Kerry's Autism Journey, where every single place I go to speak, I bring a tripod and a camera, and I sit down with self-advocates for 10 to 15 minutes at a time, and I ask them, what would you like the world to know about you? Not only in the hopes of breaking down barriers for those with special needs, but also giving these individuals a platform to nurture their own self-advocacy. So one of the first individuals we ever got to highlight was this young boy named Liam, who simply wanted the world to know that sometimes because of having autism, it's hard to find connections and it's hard to make friendships. And this is what Liam wanted the world to know about his story.
So we're going to be talking to the camera, and we want to make you famous. So we literally want to make you probably the most famous person on the planet. How's that sound?
Okay.
No pressure.
Autism basically makes it hard to connect. It makes it hard to get that connection, to make friends. They feel like more loners than, well, in groups. It's also a learning disability, and in some cases, it's hard. You can't speak in some cases. I met a kid called Tom, who he has autism, but he can't speak in proper English. He needs an iPad.
So Liam, one thing I want you to know is that I was actually diagnosed with autism at an early age too. And I don't know if I've ever actually told you that, but I want you to know that I will always be here to be your friend if you need a friend, okay?
Yeah.
Because even though it may be hard at times to connect to other people, you know, I feel like so many people with autism like us just want like what anyone else wants, you know, to feel connected and to have a friend. So you'll always got a friend in me, okay? You want to pound this up?
Yeah.
Do you blow it up too? Oh, he blows it up. You're awesome, Liam.
I'm kind of tearing up. Sorry.
It's okay.
It's kind of
So this was Liam's first ever opportunity to share with anyone in his world about his autism diagnosis. And it went viral when we posted it online, and it led to so many more opportunities for us to hear from self-advocates within the community who would reach out to us on our Facebook page. They would request interviews as well. If you know of any self-advocates as well, so thank you for having us at this conference. Definitely let us know, and maybe we can do a Zoom interview with them to highlight their stories. So we've met with all these local self-advocates, and now today our Facebook page has over 213,000 Facebook followers. And we really hope to nurture these kids' self-advocacy, but we also hope to break down barriers for them as well by hearing their first-person perspectives, especially because some of them feel at times where they don't get to share their voice and they feel like they don't have a platform to share what's important to them. So I share Liam's story in addition because I think it's really important that we consider having a dialogue about our child's diagnosis sooner rather than later. Now, I have a workshop available on my website where I talk a lot about how to help have that conversation with your child. And one of the things that I highly, highly recommend is trying to have it as early as possible, especially when that child is just starting school. Because let me tell you, when I learned about my diagnosis, just a few years later, I started sitting in on my IEP meetings to learn more about my specific strengths and challenges. You could do it on a very novice level too. You don't have to explain the diagnostic statistical manual. You could just simply say something like, you have something called autism, but it doesn't make you any less of a person. Now, sometimes I get pushback from families who say, well, Kerry, I don't want to tell my child about their autism diagnosis because I don't want them to feel defined by a label. And what I say to those parents is give your child a positive person to look up to, the Michael Jordans of the world, to show them that people with disabilities have had success as well within our communities. It's really important that these children learn to self-advocate for themselves, especially living in a social media centric world. There's so many individuals who I know who feel disheartened to learn about their autism diagnosis and that their parents never told them about their autism diagnosis simply because their mom or dad posted something on Facebook about it, and them being like, oh my God, why was I never told? Having the opportunity to have these conversations sooner rather than later can be really beneficial towards your child's development as they grow older. In addition, as the amazing intro we've received today, you heard that we give out scholarships for autistic students to go to college. And I was so delighted to get to meet one of my scholarship winners face-to-face named Rachel. Now, Rachel has a very unique story of growing up with autism, which I wanted to share because she has a unique message that I wish more people could hear about within her community.
What would you like for people to know about you?
About me? Well, there's so many things. I think that, well, there's not really anything juicy. So many people think that you have a juicy secret that you're keeping and then you reveal it and then people aren't interested anymore. But if you must know, I will say that I have 2 cats, and I'm not sure whether they're gay or not, but I love them very much because they're my big fluffy babies, and it doesn't matter whether they're gay or straight, autistic or neurotypical, I would love them no matter what. I was diagnosed when I was 3. I can clearly remember being in preschool and my mom was called into the office and I could just listen to the teachers talking to her and they're just saying, she is not right. She has a few screws loose. She'll never make any friends. Because I'd always sit alone in the corner while everyone was just playing with their friends or their dolls. And they just didn't know how to handle someone with autism. And my mom just had a fit. She's like, I'll be damned if my kid doesn't make any friends.
There you go.
So she read all these books about autism, and without her, I just wouldn't be here today.
So for everyone at home, Rachel was actually one of our scholarship winners. She won the KFM Making a Difference Award for students with autism who are currently pursuing a post-secondary education. And Rachel, when did you first know that you wanted to go to college for the first time?
Well, I think I've always wanted to go ever since I was a little girl. I know I've always wanted to go. I wanted to because, when I was little, I used to play school. That's what I was trying to get in my head. I would play school, and I'd pretend I would be in college, and that's basically it. because I always loved school. I wasn't going to let autism stop me.
So there are people like Rachel out there who consider their autism diagnosis as part of a superpower for them. And I think it's really important, especially not only talking about girl autism, and Rachel today has had the opportunity to speak at many different events about her journey as a girl on the autism spectrum. Simply, boys are diagnosed 4 times more often than girls in our autism community today in the United States. So we need to have more conversations about girl autism, which Rachel does now, being able to have a platform. Her video was received over 250,000 views, which gave her the opportunity to receive more exposure as well within our community. And one thing that helped Rachel was routine. Now, I definitely recommend, especially if your child has challenges with routine changes and being able to build a structure for themselves, looking at visual schedules that might be able to potentially help. Autism Speaks has over 40 free toolkits that I know about, which have a wide range of things from early intervention when your child is just diagnosed to these visual supports in addition to later adulthood with autism. And this is one of the examples they have on their website, which is just reminder strips for hygiene in the bathroom. And these are just helpful reminders that will help your child be able to build a structure, especially if they are more of a visual learner in nature. So Rachel was also one of our scholarship winners. I received minimal scholarship aid, and that was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to start a scholarship program, because I know many individuals such as myself who have autism have difficult times with test taking. And honestly, 2 of the biggest metrics for scholarship aid in the United States are GPA scores and SAT/ACT scores, especially at most public universities. So I realized that so many children on the autism spectrum were having challenges with Common Core. They were having challenges with standardized testing. I wanted to do something to help these students fulfill their goals of pursuing a post-secondary education. So we started the scholarship program, giving just 1 scholarship out. Now we've been able to give out 86 partial scholarships for students with autism to go to college. We give out this scholarship every spring, and I'm so excited to tell all of you that we are actually coming out with a book based on all of the scholarship students' essays, which we are going to have 100% of the proceeds of that book, which will be coming out in the fall, go back to our nonprofit. So hopefully we could continue to give out many more scholarships for years to come and make it self-sufficient. So,
no, please take my seat. I don't
see, sometimes even professional speakers need help with transitions. So one of the other areas that I hope we can start encouraging our communities to do more of is sensory-friendly related events. Now, I think one of the hardest challenges I see with many on the spectrum is when their parents tell me that their child really doesn't have the opportunity to navigate the world because the world doesn't help navigate for them. And I feel like a lot of the times growing up, for example, I could really never meet Santa Claus during the holiday season because of my sensory challenges, could never go to a mall with hundreds of little children waiting to see Santa and being overstimulated so much. As part of my nonprofit, we started doing some very special events that we just wanted to share a little bit about with you today.
Sarah Callaghy had a one-of-a-kind meeting with Santa. The 8-year-old has autism and is nonverbal. Her father brought her to this event because this Santa's helper understands the challenges of autism firsthand.
Santa also has autism. Such a special connection, special bond.
The helper is actually 28-year-old Kerry Magro. Diagnosed at 4, his sensory challenges prevented him from visiting Santa as a child. He created this event so others like him don't miss out.
This event is more inclusive because we dim the lights, we turn down the sound and try to help them as much as we can.
Just does a great job. He just takes his time. There's no rush.
Most of the elves and Mrs. Claus are occupational therapists and special education teachers. The team visited with 181 special needs families, including 4-year-old Rusty Marsh.
Is this the first time you've seen Santa?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
And was he a nice Santa?
Yes.
With 1 in 68 children diagnosed with autism, Magro hopes to inspire more sensory-friendly events all year round.
Autism doesn't stop in December. It doesn't stop during Christmas.
I want everybody to be happy.
Santa says,
This is the best Christmas gift of all.
This is the 3rd year of the event, and Magro's mom is one of those jolly elves.
So this has been a labor of love. For the past 5 years, I've gotten the opportunity to play Santa Claus and to give children with autism and sensory needs their first opportunity to ever meet Santa. And because of the impact that these first events started to have, we've started to look at ways we can host more events all year round, because we realize that autism doesn't stop at Christmas. It's 24/7 within our community. And these, we get asked to speak at many different groups to talk about how they can be more inclusive. And a lot of the inclusion ideas that we discuss are things such as sensory trick or treat. You can also consider unified playgrounds, which consider PEC Sports for nonverbal children to communicate with non-disabled children as well. In addition, you could look at unified sports. Special Olympics does a lot of that already, pairing special education classrooms with non-special education classrooms for things also such as unified physical education. In addition to that, sensory-friendly Santa and Easter events are becoming more popular at different malls across the country now, especially Simon's malls, who do it annually. AMC theaters, as we start to open back up again, they also have sensory-friendly movie outings at many of their theaters. If you check your local AMC theater, they might actually have one coming quite soon now that we're opening back up. In addition to that, Broadway, every Broadway season hosts 3 autism-friendly plays. Some of them in previous years have been Wicked, Aladdin. Many of them are focused specifically more for children, but also in previous years they've had Curious Incident, The Dog in the Nighttime as well, which focuses on an autistic protagonist, which is really great as well. And if you're trying to learn more about this, definitely reach out to me after this presentation. However, there's a one-sheet PDF on how you can go about making your events sensory friendly at paautism.org. I would highly, highly recommend going to their website, because it talks about how you can go about the entire process, such as leaving the lights a little bit brighter so everyone can see what's going on around them, towards turning down external noise, towards making sure that you're not using cleaning products that have a certain fragrance smell to them, because that can be overstimulating to other individuals. All this is included in that PDF. In addition, I just mentioned the PEC Sports idea. This is something that has been gaining traction in many schools, specifically in their lunchrooms and their resource areas outside, recess areas outside. These are simply just for nonverbal children to be able to communicate with others and to really focus on the word inclusion. A lot of unified playgrounds are also considering these for their areas as well. If you want to learn more about how you might be able to establish this within your area, I would definitely recommend going to the Elizabethtown Education Foundation for more details. So I know that we're sharing a lot of resources today. One thing I will mention at the beginning, when I asked you all to scan the QR code had, it was actually the wrong QR code. So you will have to go to the link bit.ly/Kerry slide notes to receive the PowerPoint slides. slide notes, there was a malfunction in the QR code, which I'm just hearing about as people are emailing me about it. If you go to that link though, and it will also be at the end of this presentation, you could grab it as well. I'll make sure you get all the PowerPoint slide notes from today's presentation. We also have to be cognizant in our autism community, though, about the importance of the spectrum. Now, my dear friend, Dr. Stephen Schwartz says, if you met one individual with autism, you met just that one individual with autism. But one of the hardest things I receive from families is when they tell me that their child has the type of autism that nobody talks about. We see so much of the time, and my parents saw this when I was just diagnosed. Some people who don't have that personal connection to autism consider autism that kind of like Rain Man diagnosis, where every single person with autism is great at math, every single person with autism has a photogenic memory, and every single person with autism can win you a lot of money on the blackjack tables. And we now know that autism is a very wide spectrum. And while I can say today I have a full-time job, live independently, there are going to be people in our community who are going to need lifetime care. And it's important that we highlight their stories as well if we want to focus on providing quality supports across the lifespan for everyone within our community. So I met a boy named Gassi who wanted to share his story. He was having a little bit of overstimulation the day we did the video, but he still wanted us to post this video to highlight the stories of people within our community. And this is a little bit about Gassi's story.
Wave to the camera, say hi. It's a fun camera, isn't it?
Hi.
You're amazing. Can I get a high five? Aw, awesome, man.
Gassi is 9.
Yeah.
And he's on the autism spectrum.
Nice.
Functionally non-verbal, but we do get words from time to time. Sentences actually from time to time, but very infrequently. One of my hopes is really that we find a way that he is comfortable communicating. Right now he is using a lot of tap to talk, on the iPad, but I really would like to see it develop a little bit more into not just asking for something, but communicating something. Like, I had a good day. It's just that I need to reach him where he is. And, he's an awesome kid if you get to know him.
He definitely seems like it. Is there anything else that you would like for people to know at home about your story, but also your son's story?
I think we need more awareness, and I think people just need to be a little bit more aware. When you see a child throwing a tantrum in a supermarket or screaming on an airplane, it's not that the child is acting out. It may just be that the child needs, the environment is different, and they're having a hard time. There's a lot of judgment, and I really wish that people would just stop and just let go of the judgment and just try to understand. Because if you ask me, if we're in a supermarket and he has a moment, if somebody came up to me and said, is he okay? And I could explain, he's just, this is what is happening today. That's so much better than still looking and, they kind of...
Exactly.
So I absolutely love Gassi's story and what his mom was saying. But one of the other things that I think is truly important about his story that we talk about is stimming. Now, he was stimming and he was flapping throughout this process because he was in a school that was 90 degrees that day, where there was no air conditioning, and he was dealing with overload because he was really, really warm. And to self-regulate, he flaps and stims. And as long as it's not self-injurious to him or others, we need to normalize that stimming and flapping is okay. We often see some types of therapies try to take away autistic behaviors or autistic characteristics. And if somebody stims, we all stim, even if it's me, for example. I've been stimming, just moving my hands, which you can't see on camera. We all stim a little bit in our lives. Some of us do it without even really noticing that we do it. So we definitely need to normalize that within our community and make sure that kids also know that it's not being weird. It's not being, it's just a way that we all just find a way to navigate this world. So one of the other things that, and the reason why I share a little bit of his story, even though he's using tap to talk, we really need as a society to change the conversation from the fact that the key is communication, not speech. I hear a lot of families reach out to me. I receive about just a little over 100, 150 questions from parents every single day in my inbox asking for advice. And one of them is, how can I get my child to talk, especially if they're nonverbal? Now, I think one of the goals that we should be saying, though, is if your child isn't speaking yet, have you looked at other means of communication as an avenue for them to have conversations with you, such as text-to-speech devices, Toby Light Writer assistive speech devices, low assistive technologies such as picture exchange communication systems. In addition to that, looking at things such as American Sign Language, and if that might be beneficial towards that child. Definitely having longer conversations with your child's pediatrician and therapist can help you navigate that process. In addition, one of the things that helped my journey with my parents was when they would give me a little bit of space before responding to different questions that I would have, but also questions they were asking me. I usually say 10 to 15 seconds before going to that next time, because it can be beneficial to have us have an opportunity to process a little bit before we might say something back to you. In addition to that, promoting enjoyable opportunities when you can. Some individuals, and there's a big discrepancy between nonverbal and non-speaking. Nonverbal often means no babbling at all, no sounds at all, versus non-speaking. So if your child is making noises, definitely understand and try to mimic those noises as a way of meeting them where they are in their own level of communication, because it can also be beneficial towards later on promoting words and hopefully full sentences at some point. Music can also be very beneficial as well, and also encouraging peer-to-peer interaction, because that can play a pivotal role in starting to build on communication down the road. In addition to that, if you're interested in learning more about how your child communicates already, even if they are verbal and they are speaking, there's a great communication matrix that's free. It's a skills assessment designed to evaluate your child's communication abilities. It looks at possible communicative behaviors such as pre-attentional, intentional, unconventional as well. And it's all free to check out at communicationmatrix.org. As we continue our conversations, though, one of the things that we need to realize more in our autism community is that children with autism will become adults with autism, and we need to be ready for them. Over 500,000 children with autism will become adults with autism within the next decade, and most publicly funded services fall off the cliff when these children turn 18 and reach adulthood. But autism does not end at 18. But one of the other areas that we're learning more about in our community today is the fact that actual adults went years without receiving a diagnosis and are actually being diagnosed in adulthood and receiving minimal support. One of the self-advocates we highlighted as part of our video series was a woman named Nellie, who was 56 at the time that we interviewed her, who just found out about her diagnosis of autism at 53 years old. And this is a little bit about Nellie's story.
I was diagnosed at age 53 in December of 2014. It was so life-changing for me after a lifetime of struggles and not knowing what was going on and just thinking I was stupid. Really, I grew up with struggles comprehending and understanding and friendship. I was even hospitalized in 2008 for almost a month with depression and OCD and anxiety, and never knowing what was going on, and no one knew to look.
What would you like the world to know out there about your story? Just anything at all.
Persevere, be strong, don't take no for an answer. There were so many times I wanted to give up, and I didn't, because I knew that whatever was going on, the doctors weren't seeing it, they were missing it. And my perseverance, my being determined and not giving up, even though there were times when I just wanted to say, I'm done, I'm leaving this planet, I can't handle this pain anymore. Something said, no, there's a reason you're here, keep going, keep moving, and it proved out. Even now I tear up. It was like my life changed that moment, and everything from childhood on, from classroom bullying, from abuse as a child, physical and sexual abuse that I internalized, friendships that didn't work, all of those things shifted in that moment. And since that time, and it's been over 2 years, everything is being reframed about who I am and what's important and what I want to do in my life. I feel like I'm a kid again and that I've been born over again. And part of me gets a little frustrated and angry about that, because I am 56 now, and it's like I wish I knew now what I knew, my diagnosis now, that I had known it earlier.
Nellies' story is probably one of the more powerful stories that we've had the opportunity to highlight. And Nellie, for years, receiving those misdiagnoses and just not knowing. Again, this is why I really, truly believe we need to have earlier conversations, but we also have to look at those associated medical conditions and have second opinions and really just make sure we're doing our utmost so we can provide early services for these individuals. Nellie also mentioned to me about the whole fact that because she's a girl, a lot of the times her diagnoses were kind of just underlooked because of the fact that she is a girl on the autism spectrum. So what my parents did for me when I was a child was they really started planning for my adulthood. It's so important because I hear from a majority of families who don't even have a will for their child who is now an adult, who's on the autism spectrum, and that literally blows my mind. We need to look more into special needs financial planning, look at special needs financial attorneys. We also need to see and have larger conversations about ABLE accounts and seeing if your state currently has ABLE in place, ABLE being the Achieving Better Life Expectancy Act, which actually offers tax-free savings accounts for so you can start saving for your child today for their future. In addition to that, preparing for guardianship, one of the things that I mentioned in one of the 2 TED Talks I gave which is called What Happens to Children with Autism When They Become Adults. A universal question that many of us have is, what will happen to my child when I'm gone? And we need to start looking at a letter of intent. So a letter of intent basically looks at just all of your things from your child's medical records to some of the things and key interests that they have, their hobbies. It all breaks it down. So when it is time to move to guardianship for somebody else, they have a wide range of information on that individual. We need to start preparing for guardianship sooner rather than later, if it's going to be a family member or a friend within your social circle as well. In addition, I dealt with a lot of puberty challenges during my road from nonverbal to professional speaker. I had a lack of understanding of why these changes were happening. And during the transition to adulthood, I also had a lot of growing pains, going from a kid who was 5'9" all the way to a kid or a man who is now 6'3". I dealt with back issues, more sensory issues due to oily skin, in addition to mood swings as well. Autism Speaks, I definitely love this toolkit they have that focuses on challenging behaviors, which I would definitely recommend. Also, in addition to that, looking at cognitive behavioral therapy, if you do see increased behaviors in your child, especially when it comes to puberty. For those in a nutshell who are just hearing cognitive behavioral therapy for the first time, basically it helps a child build a muscle memory to go from negative thoughts to looking at positive outlooks. In addition to that, one resource that I don't see enough of in our communities, especially in that transition to adulthood, is dating. That's why I wrote a book called Autism and Falling in Love, because I realized that there was minimal resources for many of my mentees who 90% of the time didn't want to talk about mock interviews. They didn't want to talk about post-secondary opportunities. They wanted to talk about the cute boy and the cute girl and how they could go about forming relationships. So we need to discuss things such as rejection, and that happens to everyone, looking at avenues such as online dating, but also having and being mindful about things such as catfishing, which is continuing to be prominent within our communities. Also looking at different levels of intimacy, also understanding the difference between flirting and friendliness, especially for those who might have challenges with nonverbal communication, facial cues, having the inability to sometimes understanding sarcasm as well. And also understanding things from other people's perspectives, especially if they do have a potential partner, and understanding their needing for time. And that's why the importance of open communication needs to be understood as well. Also in that transition to adulthood, some of the apps that are tremendous focused on being able to go about meditation and being able to focus on those challenging behaviors include things such as Calm and Headspace. Now they have free and paid versions on the Google Play Store in addition to the Apple Store that you could check out. In addition to that, to keep on building a routine, I would definitely recommend apps such as Clear and Wunderlist, who have free and paid versions of their software as well. So we have been able to make this video series a national movement, being able to highlight over 150 interview 150 self-advocates and now highlight over 225 in our communities. And we make this part of our nonprofit. We've highlighted everyone from a 6-month-old with Down syndrome all the way to a Army veteran who did not disclose his cerebral palsy so he could serve in the Army. So some tremendous stories. We still get told all the time that this video series is a waste of time and that nobody will ever give donations to help us make this into a full-time job. So we just hope that we can find people within our community to support our initiatives and understand the importance of self-advocacy and normalizing the human condition and promoting neurodiversity. So we hope we continue to hopefully find people like that within our community who are willing to help. In addition, one of the biggest challenges, like the Today Show video mentioned, once I started talking, you couldn't get me to stop talking. Two of my biggest challenges growing up on the spectrum were sensory challenges and then also being bullied for my differences, as I mentioned in that poem. And what a lot of parents don't know is that you can actually put in parameters if your child is being reoccurring bullied as part of their IEP. For me growing up, I didn't have the social abilities to defend myself. So I was often alone in many of my classes. So I was an easy target. So we need to help our students be able to define what a bully is, what a friend is, and when somebody is being sarcastic. Because often growing up, I would befriend bullies. Because even though I was receiving negative attention, there was some form of attention. So being able to role play different scenarios was really beneficial for me to also learn how to stand up and speak up when I was being bullied, being able to go to a teacher, being able to find a peer who would speak for me at some cases when I was feeling overwhelmed, and to tell a bully that what you're doing is not okay. In addition, one of the most frequent talks we get asked to speak at in the school systems is during October, which is National Bullying Prevention Month, where we discuss the fact that 1 in 5 students are currently a victim of bullying, but those with disabilities are twice as likely to be bullied compared to their non-disabled peers, with those with autism being on the highest prevalence of bullying within our school systems. And also educating the fact that bullying doesn't mean that well, for one thing, I have a lot of educators who say that kids need to have a stronger backbone. Some cases, yes, but words do have power. And for many in our community, this can lead to lasting challenges. So I want to highlight to you a young woman named Kristen who is on the autism spectrum and unfortunately, because of bullying, has dealt with lasting challenges.
What would you like for people at home to know about you?
I've been through a lot, and if you just give me a chance, you know, I'm a very bright, talented, pretty cool person. I'm a painter, I'm a writer, and I've written a couple books, and I like to do some acting. I'm very multi-talented. I also like to make music. Actually, I could say my greatest accomplishment was pushing through. Because of the bullying, I have a lot of depression that I've actually, can I say, I've tried to commit suicide many times, and something in my mind, I don't know, just tells me that it's gonna get better, and then I'm gonna be something one day, you know, and
You are gonna be something one day. You're something right now.
I don't feel that way.
But you do amazing art. You know, you've kind of like flourished. I mean, you got the punk rock thing still coming on too. I mean, you do have things going on in your life, and I was a victim of bullying too. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that.
It's quite often, you know. I've tried to rack my brains around it, and it's just, I think one of the biggest things is that I'm just alone all the time. You know, I don't have a group of friends, and I get attacked in public by people. You know, I'm a very easy target, and this happened my whole life, and it happens so often. I'm almost afraid to leave my house. You know.
I just want you to know, it's like there are people out there in our community who want to be your friend. From people such as myself who friends with countless self-advocates and just friends with people. There are people out there in our community who want to be your friend, and I hope you never forget that. I know it sucks. Bullying sucks. Bullying's terrible, and no one should ever bully anyone. But you know.
Well, one of the problems I have is trust. You know, it used to be I didn't understand jealousy until my early 20s. I didn't have that comprehension of understanding that emotion at all. Like I said, it was very black and white. You're either smiling and you're happy, or you're you're frowning and you're mad at me. And you know, I didn't understand that sometimes people can be conniving and be smiling at you.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yep.
They have malicious intentions, but they'll be smiling at you. And I've got taken advantage of and massively abused because I didn't understand it. And I kind of almost fear the world now because of it, and it's taken a toll on me.
Is there any like final thought that you would like to leave for people at home about your story?
Really take the time out of your lives to appreciate what you have every day. Find some inner peace in your mind to truly love and accept yourself in a world that has a lack of love and acceptance, and try to find, I know it can be hard, you know, in a world that it wants to segregate everybody, but you know, and it's hard to find the right group of people, but I definitely say hanging around loving, positive individuals would be a good thing.
And acceptance is key.
Yeah, acceptance is key. That's actually one of my philosophies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So her story is like Nellie, and it gets me choked up at times when I watch her video, even to this day. It's really powerful to me because, you know, there's so many things I could talk to you all about this topic. One of the biggest ones I guess I would throw out to you is that one of the leading causes of death for those between the ages of 10 to 34 in the United States is suicide. And, you know, I also have a very special moment. I was in middle school. I'll just give you a real quick story real quick. I was in middle school and we shared Kristen's video. And a student came up to me afterwards and he said to me, Mr. Kerry, I used to be a bully and I didn't know that people could feel the way that Kristen felt. And I just want you to know that I will never bully anyone again because I now know the way that people like Kristen feel. And yeah, it's me. If I never got another speaking engagement for the rest of my life, I definitely think that would be one of the highlights that I would remember the most. That Kristen's story, her being brave that day, could have possibly just impacted a few other people's lives who may have been bullied in a similar situation at school. So bullying has become one of my, as somebody who used to be bullied and bullied so severely, I have become a strong anti-bullying activist and truly believe we need to do more to have conversations about this in our community. Anyways, all right, Wusa, good now, promise. So finally, to end off today's presentation, I just want to share in summary 10 quick things that helped me from my journey from nonverbal autism to today being a professional speaker. The first one, dude, where's my IEP? So I went up to my disability support specialist the first day of school and I asked her, hey, if you could hook me up with that IEP, I will be right out the door. And that was the first time I was ever told about 504 reasonable accommodations. I assumed I was getting an IEP in college. We need to do a better job overall when our students are in high school, being able to provide them with a transition plan. Most states it's 14, some states it's 16 as part of their IEP that looks at what the future might have in store for them, from things such as vocational training to help them getting ready for things such as employment, looking at job coaching, look at resume building, look at what specific jobs they want to do. If it's post-secondary, more on the emphasis of college applications, resume building. All these things need to be part of that transitional planning, but also in that self-advocacy needs to play a role as well. In addition to that, role playing, I think, needs to be done more and more to help us, and especially those who have difficulties with mind blindness and tunnel vision, only seeing the perspective of themselves and not others, being able to play this out so they get a better understanding of the world. Servant leadership, I think it's also truly important for many of our students to get more involved with. Simply put, I see a lot of the mind blindness, as I was just mentioning, I see a lot of kids sometimes dealing with hardships themselves, but not realizing that a lot of people in our communities deal with challenges. So being able to volunteer and give back to the community and understand that they're not the only ones going through hardships can really help them get a better perspective of the world while also doing something good for somebody else. Learning from other self-advocates and peer mentoring go hand in hand. I believe every K through 12 school should have a strong peer mentoring program within their schools. We have consulted with many schools on how they can be able to do this, because when peer mentoring works, studies have shown that isolation, depression, anxiety, and bullying typically are lowered because of that. I often say in the community that there's no one size fits all when it comes to different therapies. Try to find what works best for your child. But I do say that cognitive behavioral therapy is something that has helped tremendously with many individuals I know, especially those with challenging behaviors. Self-reflection, similar to the poem I shared with you, beginning with the end in mind and being able to process these things can help a child as they grow up. Being able to, for example, write short-term and long-term goals during the academic year in the beginning of each new year, just so they have an opportunity to look at what the future might have in store for them. Physical activity, I think all of us should be, especially because of the short-term and long-term retention of the memory is actually impacted by just 30 minutes of walking each and every day. It also releases endorphins, which can be super beneficial for those who have challenging behaviors. In addition, finding support networks. Obviously, your university is tremendous for hosting this conference. I would definitely recommend all of you definitely check out their social media pages and learn a little bit more about what they're doing to support the autism community, because it's truly amazing. I wish there were more people like at Augustana University championing this cause. And then finally, writing a blog, because at the end of the day, we need more people's perspectives in our world, being that 1 in 5 Americans currently today have some form of disability, making up the largest minority in the United States. They're often the most underserved community, however, due to that some individuals with disabilities have very significant challenges with their disabilities and aren't able to speak up and advocate for themselves, which is why as a community, we need more of your voices coming to the table, writing blogs, writing on social media, encouraging your senators towards grassroots change for those with disabilities, so we can truly provide quality resources across the lifespan for everyone within our community, the over 70 million people worldwide who currently have an autism diagnosis. So I never expected this to be my life. I was receiving internships from CBS Sports, and I was assuming I was going to go into a career in sports behind the camera, something in production, working with a group such as ESPN. But I saw a true need in this community, and it became a labor of love, which led to my nonprofit, which led to what I'm doing today. And as that kid who was so scared of the world, was so scared of the world around him, didn't see a lot of possibilities for himself, experts not seeing a lot of possibilities for myself either. One thing that I continue to say is that autism can't define me, and I define autism. And I can only hope, regardless of any challenge or obstacle that you are currently facing in your life today, that you can go out there and you can define your lives and your journeys in the way that you best see it every single day of your lives. And if you need any help getting started doing that, these are the ways that you can stay in contact with me after today's presentation. I thank you all so very much for taking your Monday morning to learn a little bit more about autism. I would like to thank Augustana University for having me again. This was such an amazing opportunity to learn more about what they're doing as well. So as a note, as I mentioned, the QR code for some reason was having challenges. So if you would like the PowerPoint slide notes from today's presentation, if you missed anything, go to bit.ly/Kerry slide notes, plural notes, all lowercase, and I will be more than happy to send you the PowerPoint slide notes from today's presentation in case you missed any resources. In addition, we consider testimonials the greatest compliment if you could give us a little feedback on what you enjoyed most from today's presentation, any different parts that you found helpful, any videos that you found encouraging and powerful. Definitely let us know. And thank you again, Augustana University. This was a great morning, and I hope to talk to all of you soon. I will leave this slide up for a few more minutes just so you can get the rest of the content. And thank you all again so much.